What's good, beautiful people? I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Today, I want to talk about the YouTube challenge that I have been embarking on over the last 30 days. And I just want to talk about the journey, what I've learned, the results, all of that kind of stuff there, because I've never done anything like this before. And I said to myself, look, when I'm at the end of this, I want to share my learnings and just basically see what happens. Now, I've got some notes here to help me. So if I'm looking to the side, that's probably why. But essentially, the whole point of this was, number one, I wanted to genuinely understand how I can provide value to people, whether that information is old or new. Okay, and I say that very deliberately because at the end of the day, human beings like to chase new information thinking that new is better, when sometimes old still works, whatever old is classified as. And so it had to be based on my experiences. It had to be based on stuff that has worked for me, which means that it's not going to work for everybody. So if you resonate with this stuff, that's fantastic. If you don't, that's also fantastic too. The second thing is also trying to understand specifically if there are any sort of service offerings or products that I could provide on the back of this. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'd be selling stuff straight away or whatever it may be, but it was to see if there was any appetite or if there was any indication. And I was doing all of this stuff to better understand specifically what I needed to do, because I've been on this long ass journey, okay, trying to discover specifically what I want to focus on. But then I'm going to talk about how I've come to a position where I'm getting closer, should we say. So this whole journey started off with me speaking to my wife, and I was talking about some of my frustrations. And she started talking about her own career journey. And as she was talking about her career journey over the 90 minutes or so, I started to record it, by the way, because I'm like that. I was like, she's actually my ideal audience, I think. She's a project professional, she's competent, but there are opportunities to better articulate her value so she can find bigger and better opportunities, whether that is independently or whether for a new organization or new role or whatever it may be. But it's that whole setup, it's that whole journey that I can definitely identify with, and I know I have supported her with and have supported others with. And so I was like, there's something in this. There's something in this. And so what I started to realize is that among speaking to a few other people, just really sort of bouncing off these ideas and stuff, there was one friend, a good friend of mine, Katrina. So she was the good friend who got me into this whole contracting space. I spoke to her just about some of these ideas and stuff, and she co-signed it. She said it sounds like a great idea, and there's definitely a need for helping people within the career space, namely within the independent consulting space, contracting space, all of that kind of jazz there. But what I did do with her was I sought her ideas centered around how can I align my messaging online, especially LinkedIn, because that's something we're both on, and what does that specifically look like? And I was challenged between this whole space of, do I go for the whole sort of like solo personal brand thing, or do I go down the route of, actually, do you know what? Let me really edify my credentials and my experience and all of those different things there. Because there was something that my wife said. I asked her, are you more interested to get help from an individual who is let's say, for example, a trainer, a coach or mentor, or is it something else? And she said, well, logically speaking, I want help from somebody who I believe is at least the next step up or further ahead or whatever it may be. And that's reflected in their title and their experience. So with that logic in mind, and based on what Katrina was saying, it made sense to focus on something that was centered around my sort of like experience, my role, all of that kind of stuff there within the whole independent consulting or contracting space. And lo and behold, the light switch was triggered again, because I was still posting stuff online, YouTube, X, Y, and Z. It just wasn't as aggressive, should we say. And when I say aggressive, I'm talking about in terms of frequency. And so, in addition to all of this stuff, in terms of all of this soul searching and finding and all that kind of jazz there, I just naturally went to YouTube. I naturally went to YouTube to try and seek answers, okay? And I do this occasionally all the time. Sometimes I have a conversation with my low-key babes ChatGPT, or I speak to friends, or I speak to my missus or my sister, or speak to my brother-in-law, or I will go to YouTube, okay? And I was just searching through some stuff, and there was this guy called David Bayer who popped up on my feed, and I watched one of his videos where it really spoke to this whole idea of trying all this different stuff, but recognizing it's not necessarily the vehicle, it's more centered around alignment. And what he was talking about specifically was, you know, do I specifically know what problem I want to solve? What do people naturally come to me for anyway, i.e. your skills and your strengths? And based on those two pieces of information, how do I communicate solving a specific problem effectively or properly or aligned to the person that I'm helping? So rather than saying stuff like, you know, independent consulting or portfolio career, which is stuff that I've all said, maybe you just say career, maybe you just say contracting as an example. So what language can make it easier to invite people so you can really break down what you want to break down for them? And so this kind of became the thing that I started to think about. I started to think about first principles. You know, rather than moving ahead and trying to solve like future problems, what specific thing did I need to solve in front of me? And one of those things that I needed to solve in front of me was, what do people see when they see my stuff online? Because that's typically the first interaction they have. Now, of course, this is all stuff that we've heard a million times before, but there was a certain level of patience that I had to take, because I'm somebody who's quite eager to solve the world's problems today. You know, I just have that sense. And so I get frustrated when that doesn't happen. Well, it's natural that wouldn't happen, because if we were able to think something and then it was solved straight away, a lot of us would be dead right now because of the evil thoughts that people have. Okay? So the point being made is that delayed gratification, that delayed sort of like closing the gap between desires and reality is important. So there had to be patience exercise. But whilst I was waiting for this stuff, I was trying to solve it. Well, what was I trying to solve? I was trying to think about, okay, what does my branding look like? What does my messaging look like? What do the colors feel like? What sort of image do I portray? Are people going to be off-put? Of course, there's always going to be people who are off-put, and that's perfectly fine. But for the majority of people that I'm aiming to serve, does it make sense? Is there something that can be tweaked? And I'm not even saying that I've got it solved right now, but it's improved, okay? And there are some things that people have not even seen, but I at least know that I have done some considered things in order to improve that stuff. In addition to that, when the time is right, do I have any offerings and or services that are available to individuals? Okay, so in this instance, a CV and LinkedIn optimization service makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And so bearing all of this stuff in mind, I slowly but surely took my time to do this stuff. I made changes to my website, michaeltabaradi.com. There wasn't much changes that needed to be done to my consulting website, masterygroup.com. There were some things that were changed when it came to my Instagram and LinkedIn. Again, not crazy amounts, but little amounts. The same thing came to my YouTube, etc., etc. In terms of like what I focused on, it looks the same, but it's slightly tweaked. So all of these different tweaks came into play in order to, again, serve the first principles and answer those questions. So I felt at least satisfied to then get to the next step, which was at least trying to generate that right level of engagement. But there is one thing I recognize, and this is something that I've known for a while but didn't necessarily accept. There is definitely a space and a gap within the market in relation to some of the stuff that I talk on. Centered around contracting, centered around portfolio careers, centered around independent consulting to a degree. The type of independent consulting that I speak to, i.e. links to outside of IR35, rather than a freelance type of independent consulting. And so with that knowledge, how did I know this? Well, I had validation from this probably 2 or 3 years ago, but I didn't want to just bottle myself into this space because it didn't feel like me. I only spoke about it because I was just sharing my experiences at the time, and it just seemed to be a thing that worked. But now it's different because it feels like I'm just talking. I'm not trying to script anything or whatever it may be. Yes, I have notes here, but I'm just talking. There's no editing. There's none of that stuff. I'm just being myself completely in that way. So it was more the setup that has changed as opposed to the topics, should I say. And so with that in mind, all of these things, all of these ideas made things much clearer for me. Now, I went to an event at the beginning of the year. It was the BYP event, so the Black Young Professionals Network. And I hadn't been to any events for a very, very long time. A very, very long time. and met the founder there, who I've known for a very long time. She's done amazing, so I just want to shout out her. And we connected again and just caught up and all that kind of jazz there. But what I realized was that people started to come up to me based on videos that I had produced before. And it feels weird to say, but it was humbling by nature. And of course, this could happen to anyone. It's not like some big crazy ass deal. But the reason why it's important for me to say is because that was another point of validation. That was another signal. So I hope you're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm getting signals from people coming up to me at the event, so multiple different people, and then introductions come from there. I'm getting signals from people DMing me on LinkedIn. I'm getting signals from people around me telling me stuff X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. So those were just free signals that made sense. So it just came to me. I was just like, you know what? I want to do a 30-day YouTube challenge. I want to do a 30-day YouTube challenge. I just want to see what happens. And I want to see if there is a certain level of engagement that comes with this. That was the thesis. So I had I think I had a week or two to prepare. I think I had 2 weeks. And my virtual assistant essentially just created some high-level bullet points in terms of what I could talk about. And I just made some tweaks. And that was for each day as well. Now, did I follow those things to a T? I definitely didn't. But it's nice to know you have something there as a comparison, so you can agree with talking about that very thing in the moment or not. Now, on a lead up to all of that stuff, I invited some of these individuals that came up to me during the event, and I went up to as well. It wasn't just one way, to just really talk about like what sort of things they are struggling with and what sort of improvements they would like to see, where would they usually go, all of that kind of stuff. They're just really surveying the audience to better understand, what their challenges were, because I felt like if my hypothesis was right, then it should align somewhat to what they're saying. And I would say 8 to 9 times out of 10, it was pretty close. Of course, they made some other suggestions that were unique to what I was saying, but it was just satisfying to know that I was getting closer. And so again, using AI and all that kind of stuff there, I stripped out what was said, put it into that AI, and then it gave me more content ideas as well. So all of this stuff was really cool. So I was ready to embark on this challenge. Again, I'll talk about my results in a second. But there were some rules that I needed to stick by, okay? So the rules included things like, and I've got a list here. Number 1, I was using my back camera, which I'm using right now on my phone. So that's the second thing. I wasn't using my DSLR. I had to use my phone's camera. I just needed to be myself, so to speak. No gimmicks, none of this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And the second thing was everything needed to be done on my phone. And the reason that needed to be the case, if you see some of my videos back in the day, I say back in the day, probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe 5, I don't even know. I was just starting the YouTube game again from a couple of years of being out of it. And the production value was progressive, should we say. But there was DSLR, there was lighting, there was lots of editing, there was music in the back. It's just a lot. Some of that stuff, even though it looked very simple, took 7, 8, 9 hours at times to sort of edit. And I was just like, I got trauma from all of that stuff. I was like, I don't have time or energy for any of that. This needs to be a quick wham bam, I record, chop off the ends, upload, simple. The other thing is I use a mirror to sort of check to see if it's still recording. I could use other stuff, but again, decided to use a mirror because it's nice, quick and easy. Thumbnails were going to be done on Canva on my phone. I would wear what I wanted, so none of this sort of have to wear a shirt or t-shirt, whatever it may be. It's whatever I'm wearing on the day. And there wasn't any sort of the rule was not to have any specific posting time. It was going to be in the evening at some point because it made sense based on my schedule. If I could do it around 5 o'clock, great. But if not, it's not that deep. Okay. And also when it came to sort of generating titles and thumbnail titles and stuff, I would leverage AI, but I wouldn't rely on it because the AI didn't necessarily give me exactly what I wanted. So all of the titles that I've come up with, I've just come up with on the fly. And some people may be like, hey, you should be doing better. But daily videos, 30 days, each day or whatever it may be, plus doing everything else, it's not easy, my friend. You should try it. You should try it. But also my descriptions were just going to be AI. Okay. So I kept it very simple. And what that resulted in was actually no more than an hour spent on filming, chopping off the ends, what do you call it, exporting the video, doing the thumbnail. Like, a lot of it is processing time. Okay, so processing time may take anywhere between, I'm going to say 10 to 30 minutes, potentially, I don't know. My videos are roughly 15 to 30 minutes on average, I'm guessing here. So those were the rules. Now, what happened? Well, I started on 3rd of February 2025 and ended it. I say ended, I don't know if I'm going to continue, and this is a question I've got to ask you guys, on the 2nd of March 2025. And just a quick note, the click-through rate, so this is the rate at which people clicked through to my video based on seeing it, and the watch time duration slightly improved, but it wasn't that different. So it's averaging roughly about 4% and above. And in terms of the watch time, it ranges between 5+ minutes and above, whatever it may be. So it was roughly the same. But anyway, let's get to some of the data. I'll probably do another video showing this on the screen at some point. So in terms of views, all in all, 90.2k views, which is a big improvement from the month before, where I only had 2.9k views. In terms of watch time, there was 7.7k views, or watch time, should I say, in terms of hours. But in terms of it before, it was only 271.1 hours worth of watch time. So that's a huge improvement. Then in terms of subscribers, I previously had 2,420 odd subscribers, and they have gone up to 5,120 odd subscribers. So that is a 2.7k increase, which is really positive. In terms of the subscribers before, they only increased by 52. So again, big moves there. Impressions, 1.6 million impressions. And previously, the month before, and when I say the month before, I'm talking about the 5th of January to the 2nd of February, they were 38.5k impressions. So notable sort of like statistics there. In terms of the geographies, I find this very interesting actually. So before, I had the biggest proportion of people from my channel coming from the UK, which would make sense because I'm based in the UK. That's 42.9%, then the US 10.4%, then South Africa 1%, China, I think it's Canada 1%, and then the Philippines 0.9%. But then afterwards, the USA is now leading with 46.9%, the UK 19.1%, okay, bear that in mind. Canada 4.7%, South Africa 2.7%, and India 2.3%. So there is something that happened, and I think it's one video that really shot this up, where USA individuals are more likely to have subscribed to my channel, which is interesting. This is all interesting stuff to me. In terms of genders, so before there was 21.5% of my audience were women and 78.6% were men. And now, okay, so the women are pushing up, which is positive to see. We got 33.3% women and 66.6% men. And then in terms of age groups, before we had 10.6% 18 to 24-year-olds, we have 61.9% 25 to 34-year-olds, 19.6% 35 to 44-year-olds, and 5.2% 45 to 54-year-olds. And afterwards, it is mainly in 2 or 3 camps. So 25 to 34-year-olds, 35.3%, 35.1% for 35 to 44-year-olds, and 16.7% for 45 to 54-year-olds. So really, if you're between 25 and 44, you make up 70% of my audience. So where's this all come from? Well, I guess it's because of the fact that at the beginning, there was a certain level of alignment work that I did, and sort of like primary research, should we say, and a bit of secondary research to understand, what do I need to focus on? What makes sense for me as an individual? How do people view me, etc., etc. And then with that, aired with what I'm deeming intelligent consistency, there was a certain level of traction that started to build up. Now, of course, there's always going to be one swan or anomaly. And there was one video that did extremely well. It's my highest ranking video, which I'm very grateful for, called Escape the Career Trap and Do This Instead. And that has racked up 71.5k views in the last 30 days, which is really positive. 3.2k likes, 421 comments. Now, it sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm actually shocked because for those of you who know how I've been hustling for years, I'm telling you, not just in this YouTube game, but just all of this kind of stuff, you will recognize that actually, yeah, this is a moment to definitely talk on and learn from as well. There are lessons to be learned. Now, does that mean there's going to be continued momentum? Not necessarily. This could be a one-off and that's that. But I thought I'd share my wins anyway, because there may be some of you who want to do something similar, who have been doing something similar, or in the process of doing something similar, and feel like it's just not working. Is this working? It's closer to the edge of a working, but again, let's just hold this space and not get excited. So in terms of lessons learned, something to note. So daily videos will improve your metrics, and it's an opportunity for you to get quick learnings for sure. You know, you can get quick feedback, whether that's through the comments. Sometimes you'll see nonsense in the comments, and sometimes you'll see, well, not even sometimes, the majority of times you'll see very valuable stuff in the comments. You know, and I'm very grateful for a lot of people who have written some beautiful things in the comments, whether they have been positively constructive in terms of feedback, or whether they have been just really encouraging and motivating by nature, or just affirming me. Like, I just want to say thank you to you guys, because yeah, it's really nice to see, especially, you know, doing stuff like this in the past and not necessarily getting anything for years. So yeah, positive to see. And actually, it's quite humbling when the negative comments assume you're a certain type of person. They have no clue. They have no clue. So it is what it is. Doing a video every day can be both easy and difficult to do, and it's based on your mood. You know, sometimes I don't want to do a video, but then when I'm doing the video, I'm in the mood to do it, if that makes sense. So it's more the action of doing it that changes your state of mind. And I think what helps is having something to lean on is really important. It just structures things. Even if the thing that you're leaning on is not even useful anymore, it's just a negative feedback loop to tell you, actually, yeah, we're not talking about that. This is what I actually want to talk about. So that's another thing. Another thing I'd say is, I spoke about the 1 hour processing and, you know, scheduling and all that, not scheduling, posting and all that kind of stuff. I've spoken about people and opinions and stuff, so that's all good. People are extremely nice and friendly. I want to state that up very, very quickly, so you can start to see a bit of a tribe effect, which is positive. And at the end of the day, yeah, this is not me being the teacher. I'm very much the student, and this is very much of my own experiences. But there is something in me that just wants to share this information. It's that simple. I just want to share the information. When I first started out within this whole contracting space and everything else, everybody was hush hush. Everybody was quiet about it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. All of this kind of just there. I'll never forget, back in 2016, I think it was 2016 or 2017, I asked a young lady how she got into the whole contracting space. She simply looked at me, looked away, and looked down. And I said, hey, is it that, like, did I say a swear word or something? So yeah, I'm glad I'm able to share this information, and I've got a lot on my YouTube channel in relation to contracting, independent consulting, all that kind of stuff there. So really dive deep, you know, really dive deep if you're patient enough to do it. And of course, if you're not patient enough to do it and you want more structure, more context for yourself, then of course you can reach out and we can see how, yeah, we can sit down and have, you know, conversations around coaching or mentoring that would be useful for your specific situation and needs. There's also the opportunity to validate your business and audience and idea. Okay, so again, the comments, it's not necessarily the vanity metrics per se. I think it's when I get a message on LinkedIn, I watched your video specific to this, or I really enjoyed this, or comments that, you know, affirm stuff that has been said, or questions that are being asked. Those are real metrics for me. Views are only as good as they can be, because they only tell you that people clicked on your video and watched it for X amount of time, but it doesn't necessarily show deep interest or positivity towards what you've done. So it's for me, I'm trying to like align to the right type of metrics, because I know this video may not like get crazy views, and I don't even know what crazy views is deemed as, but as long as it helps people who are in the seat of trying to work this out, who are at least 1-2 steps behind, quote unquote, whatever that means. So the next thing is a lesson that I've learned is being myself is so freeing. I'm telling you, you know, and it's not that I haven't been myself before, but I think progressively you move from a state of rigidity, okay, to a state of actually, forget all of that, man. Just talk. Like, I could talk about structure, this, that, all of this kind of stuff, but just talk, you know. And I think if you can talk like you're talking to your friend or talking to a family member or whatever it may be, it's just easy that way. And I think the final thing that is key to this is is there no point? I have to be very careful with my words here. Depending on your angle and your approach, it makes sense to ensure you have some level of alignment. It's clear that I talk about contracting or independent consulting or portfolio careers, but I can talk about other stuff too because they're interlinked. And so it's about having a scope and having a theme, but not being so sort of like trapped by that you can't talk about something else if you wanted to a degree. But you should find comfort in the fact that actually you should be a little bit narrow at the beginning, because that's what draws people in. And then people start to understand you better. Again, I had a great conversation with somebody on Friday, and you know, I was telling them all this stuff and and all this kind of jazz there, and they were like, yeah, I know, you said it on your video before. Yeah, I know. I was like, oh fam, what do I talk about? You know, it wasn't like that. I could talk about stuff, but it just meant I didn't need to over egg stuff, because the whole point of this for me is that if people are watching this and this is new information, great. But if this is recycled information and you're not taking it on board, that's also great if there's another alternative for you. But it's not great if actually this is the way that you need to sort of like conduct yourself or implement things in order for you to get the results that you want, because it's not just about new information. It's the information. It's what you do with the information and how you utilize that information. The challenge is that we're living in very difficult times, very trying times, and it's going to get worse. I'm telling you, I genuinely believe it will get worse, but it can be counteracted if we just position ourselves in ways that I wouldn't say is better, because I feel that's unfair, because you may be at a high quality standard, but maybe it's about outputs, like how frequently you do something. Maybe it's the vertical or the horizontal that you're taking. Maybe it is the approach. Maybe it is a technology or tool. Like, is there some way you can differentiate yourself? I'm not going to be able to highlight that for you necessarily. This is something you're going to have to do yourself. But if my words trigger something, then great. So those are the lessons learned in that situation. But I guess for me, this would be really useful for me. And thank you so much if you've still stuck around to watch this. Questions for you. Should I still keep on going? Should I still post a video every day? That would be really important. And if so, why? Like, what would be the benefit? That's the first question. And the second question is, until when? Until when? When do you think I should stop? Also, what do you want to learn more about? Do you want to learn more about this stuff, like what I'm speaking about specifically? Is there anything else? Is there any other sort of topic that you would like to learn more about? Let me know. What topics have I spoken about before that you think I should go deeper in? I guess the last thing is, if I was offering anything, whether that was a product or service, even a lead magnet, whatever it may be, what should that be, or what should they be? Are there any things that come to mind? So all of these questions, if you can, I should have done this in the middle, but it is what it is. That's how you know I'm just kind of flowing with it. But if you have any responses to this or these questions, then feel free to let me know. So there you have it. That's my journey towards 30 days of posting content every single day on YouTube. And you can hear, at least anyway, because I didn't show it on screen, that it definitely does get some type of results. You know, what I did fail to mention is that I had roughly about 10 bookings over 3 weeks. I think there was 1 week I couldn't get any bookings because there was a family emergency that I had to cater to. So there's 10 odd bookings, 2 sales, which is positive, and yeah, that's what happened from that. So yeah, we'll see how we can refine further, and we'll see where we go from there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this stuff. If you want to see more videos centered around either this topic, portfolio careers, contracting, independent consulting, the whole shebang, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.